Hi, and welcome to the presentation of the PMAD program. The word PMAD stands for Playing Music After Deafness. The PMAD program is a music rehabilitation program, and it is designed for musicians that have lost their hearing. My name is Massimo Tonson Latour. I am the solo writer and creator of this program. Now, hopefully on my website you have already seen, or what you should say, the introduction part, to this program. I've also done the presentation of the first part of the program, which is called the preface, as well as the second one, which is called the research. And please do not skip any of those videos, because this presentation is extremely important. I want you to make sure that you have it all there. They can really look at the program itself, before you go ahead and purchase it. Now, this part here is about jazz harmony, and I would take the word jazz away from it. I don't want you to think that this is about becoming some sort of a hot jazz player or something, but it's just, contemporary harmony. Now, I'm sure that a lot of you guys there have done great studies on this, and all these. So for you fellas, this will be, fellas and ladies of course, this will be extremely easy. You will just go straight through it. It won't be any major problem. It is a very condensed study. But in writing this program, I have to think about a variety of players, musicians at all different levels, not just of technical skills, but also in the theory field, which is extremely important if we wish to not only return to the music, but also to create a small repertoire, proper pieces that we can play polyphonically as a solo musician, solo player. Okay, so is it really important to study harmony? I think it is important for any musicians. I got nothing against people, I should say, any musicians that work in the rock industry. Fine, fantastic. But if you wish to play music that requires theory, like jazz pieces, Latin America music from themes, themes from movies, music type of thing. If you need to play this kind of music, well, then you do need some basic form of theory, something that will really help you to put all these together. Let's get started into the program itself. So I start from the very bottom. I started really from the principles, and I'm looking at the program as I'm talking to you. I started from the process, the process of building a music scale. So why is it important? Because scales are the foundations of key signatures, and then you will study that as there is a formula, that needs to be applied in order to build a scale. The formula practically it makes a particular distinctions of interval between one note to the next, and so practically this formula would be extremely important, for you to understand that from there you will jump into actually recognizing key signature, because from the scales, for example, if we were in the scale of C major, C major 7, actually, let's call it a 4-note type of scale or chords. What happens is that in that particular key signature, you have no flats, no sharps. So as you're writing the scale, you will have the actual key signature that is related to the scale. But there's more than that. As you play the scale in that particular key signature, you will find that there are chords that belong to the scales. And that is where the trick is, right? So scales, chords, and key signatures. So why do we need chords? Well, obviously, we know why we like chords, what we use them for, but we really use them to harmonize the melody line. And the foundations of having a chord is that we can start for just a simple triad, and we can move on to a 4-note chord, which would be first, third, fifth, and seventh. We can go and adding a ninth okay, to the chord, but you can add all sorts of notes. You can add a fourth, a sixth, and of course, as well as an 11, a 13. But chords become more and more complex, okay, from the fact that we can have alter chords where we actually have notes that don't belong to the scales and do not belong to the key signature, okay? We just introduce them to create these beautiful chords, like a C7 sharp 9. It's got this mystic type of sound, okay? So chords are beautiful because you'll find that 99.9% of the time, the melody line is within the chord because we use the chord to harmonize the melody line. So it is extremely important that you take this study from the very, let's say, beginning, okay, where you will practically connect your theory with the actual preface part, which is the first part of the program. So in few words, the preface is the actual exercise. The sort of jazz harmony study is the theory that you need to put into place or within the exercise, okay? And it is most important also that you make use of the old pencil and rubber and a nice music sort of manuscript. I know you guys, many of you, would like to sort of use the computer these days, to write music. That's fine as well. It's not really important. I'm one of those old-fashioned fellas who still writes music down on the sort of writing pad. But it is important that you learn to do this because, you see, when you study a chord, you're not just going to study the chord. You're going to study the intervals on these chords as you are studying the intervals in the scales. As you study the intervals, you will learn to pitch those intervals. So if you study just a simple triad, you will need to learn, the first, the third, and the fifth note and hear those intervals. Remember, pitching is what we're trying to do in this program. We are rehabilitating here, and we need to maintain the pitch across the music that we're organizing, right? So, and the further you go by increasing a seventh note and then introducing maybe the flat seven, which generates a dominant chord, or you can go into the natural seven, even known as a leading note. Those intervals are extremely important because they will allow you to recognize, the chord, and also will allow you to use it harmonically right as you use it to harmonize your piece. So it's like a sort of maths, practically, if you want to put it, that way. But the way I put it down is so basic. So there is a formula, for scale. There's the formula for chords. Okay, it explains how the chords that belong to that particular scale are the chords that belong also to the key signature and so forth. So what happened when we, and just looking here, moving across, what happened when we find chords that do not belong to that key signature? It's very simple. We are the modulating, which means we're going to different key signature. It could be a passing chord, but because particularly if you do jazzy things and all sorts of sort of nice and complex stuff, you might find that. But practically any chord that does not belong to that key signature is a foreign chord. It's not the chord of that key signature. So when you write your music, you need to really establish your key signature. It's most important to write sort of the chords that belong, to two key signatures. So you got them, you have them all there. That if you encounter a chord, that it's not one of them, then obviously you are sort of modulating, or there are things happening. Okay. Now, one of the most important sort of thing about chords that we know that they normally come on a sort of in root position. Root means that the first note is the note of the chord or the name of the note of the chord. So if you're in C major, one would expect, the C to be the first note or the root note. But the beauty about harmony is that we're able to invert chords. In few words, they don't have to start from the sort of root note. And so we create this nice inversion. What do? They create color. They may fit in, with the melody as you are sort of polyphonically arranging, your music. So inversions are very important. You need to write all these chords down. You need to understand that when you invert it, the interval, the distance is still the same because it's still the same chord. And one thing that's most important, sometimes you're looking at music and you see that there is an inverted chord, but you can't establish exactly what kind of chord it is. What is the name of this chord? Okay. Yes, you can see it could be a minor chord, but before you get in whether it's a minor or whatever, you need to find two things. You need to find your root note and you need to find your third note, because a chord without a third is not a chord. Simple as that. So the third is the most important, and it's the most important note in any chord. And then of course, that third, can be either flat or it can be natural. So practically that sort of will distinguish a minor chord from a major chord. But these things are all written down. So you will need to study all these if you haven't studied. By all means, if you have not knowledge whatsoever of harmony, as much as this is really, really simple, you might need sort of the help of a good teacher, someone that can help you out, someone that knows what he's doing, okay? It has to be a professional, and he can really help you out. And mind you, because it is this sort of, PMAD part of the program, it's so easy to sort of, take in. It's almost fun, but it is a routine work that you need to understand that you're writing theory, but in the same time you're putting your theory into practice. So you put that into the instrument and you do that for specific reasons. I said one is to maintain your pitch, one is to make sure that you are on top of your score, on top of your music. So what else? What else have we got here? Let's see. Now, chords relate to each other. Yes, there is such a thing as a relationship between minor and major chords. You will study that too. Why I said that it's C major 7 is related to an I minor 7, and incidentally that is the sixth part, because that's what it is. So you will need to study that chords relate to each other. Therefore, scales relate to each other. And if you have chords, guess what? You're going to have arpeggios, and arpeggios spell the main notes of the chord. These are very, very important tools, because later on you will use all these in your improvisations. In your improvisation, you can add nice small arpeggios, you can add parts of scales or whatever. There is another music concept is very, very important that you will need, to sort of recognize. In fact, there are two. One is the progression of chords, and the other one is the dominant type of chord, or dominant 7. The progression is extremely important, because recognizing a progression of chords, often, you hear musicians say, look, in C major, 1, 6, 2, 5. And they shoot in numbers. So in few words, they are spelling the degrees or the actual chords in that particular key signature, okay? So when they say 1, 6, 2, 5, that will be C major 7, I minor 7, so that's 1, 6, right, 2, which that will be D minor 7, and then the 5, which is the G7 or dominant 7. So progressions are most important. And also important because you can create really nice, connections with, progressions. You can go from a C major chord all the way to an F major sort of 7 chord, and playing between, the D minor 7 and the E minor 7. It's like a sort of a, what can I tell you, a ladder type of thing. It's a great, connection to move across, sort of improvisations and sort of stuff like that, okay? So you understand the meaning of dominant. You don't if you haven't studied harmony, but dominant 7 chord, it's extremely important. Dominant 7 chord will bring in sort of dynamics. You need to recognize all these points in your sort of score, because when you organize your music, you need to also, it's not only about notes, it's not only about chords. You need to shape your music dynamically, and you need to recognize these kind of chords, because when you play a chord which is dominant 7, you normally have a build-up of volume. When you have a build-up of volume, guess what? You're going to create is the word. You will create what we call, compression. So compressions can bring, distortions. Distortion is not a pleasant thing. Having musicians that wear cochlear implants or hearing aids, anyone that has hearing problems, okay? So it is most important that you recognize a dominant 7. You are in control of those chords, because normally they lead back to the tonic, which is the first sort of chord in a sort of scale range of that key signature. But sometimes that can bring you into new tonic chord, which means that it can bring you into new key. And if they do that, then guess what? Then things become a little bit sort of different, because when you move up sort of a semitone, or could be a tone, whatever it is that you're moving up to, well, you bring a completely different sort of key signature. You're losing this anchoring point that you have with your original key signature, and then you're going to ask your brain to do all this work and sort of reestablish this new sort of key change generated by this dominant chord. It's all part of practice. It's things that will happen slowly and gradually, and you just need to work at it, okay? Now, there are also, of course, the minor scales. And when I look at minor scales, first of all, there are 3 different types of scales. There's the natural, there's the melodic, and the harmonic. These 3 scales, they bring different sort of, say, degrees, okay, along, and you will need to recognize them, okay? It's all there. I'm not going to tell you what are the notes and whatever, but when you have those scales, you need to recognize them, because you might want to use them and change them according to the piece, okay? According to the piece you're doing, or according to the improvisation that you're making, where you want notes that on the way up, there are certain notes, okay, or the raise or whatever, on the way down they come back to the natural sort of note, okay, key. So most important that you understand the 3 different sort of minor keys, because guitarists like a lot to play minor keys. It's very, very important. Now, what else we have? Okay, so we spoke about altered chord. This is the ultimate, right? If you are able to perceive altered chord, properly, trust me, you are doing extremely well. Your rehabilitation in relation to being able to pitch and all the rest, it's excellent. You are getting there. Those chords are not easy, to pitch at all for people with sort of high, or I should say with profound hearing loss or whatever, and cochlear implants and so forth. Now, these there are other things in music, other aspects. So do you know how many people? Oh no, how many musicians I met that don't know the difference between time and tempo? And this is, well, it's like this. I mean, if you haven't studied music, you don't know these things. But these are extremely important things, okay, that you need to understand. Tempo, it's speed, and time actually tells you the pulse and how many notes are in that pulse. So the difference is that one is simple time and one is compound time. So practically you need to study these things, and you need to be aware of the way, to play them, because also you will play dynamically other, by sort of having a beat and dividing in 3 parts or dividing in 2 parts. There will be a lot of up and down, with your plectrum. So positions, it's important, because this brings in dynamics, okay? And also this can make your time faster, because there is such a thing as a 2/4, which is a much faster time. So the faster you go, the better your pitch needs to be, okay? Because you need to stay on top of that. And normally, speed, when we start speeding up, when we play at certain speed, we tend to add more dynamics, and the more dynamics, the more problems with compressions and whatever. Yes, actually we spoke about minor chords. I should have spoken to you about the sort of diminished and half diminished chords. Now these chords, these were some of the first ones that were introduced in the very early 16th century, when we had sort of Baroque music where they used these kind of chords, diminished and half diminished chords, to create tension and release. Those are beautiful chords. You can do so much, with those, creating arpeggios of those chords, fitting them inside your sort of improvisation, creating also a point or connection between one chord and another. So in few words, you create some sort of, let's say, tension or suspension, okay, or tension is the word, and then all of a sudden you release on something else. This creates a great dynamic change, and dynamics are always a very, very important part for musicians we're hearing problems, okay? Because, as I said, they bring different tones, different, tonalities. Now, once you learn practically your scales, your chord, your key signatures, you learn how to sort of harmonize, your melody, how you, choosing the right chords and all the rest. Practically, you're getting ready, to really sort of start working on your first pieces. At this point, you are practically ready to understand the word called analysis. So what is an analysis? So in few words, you got your music there in front of you. You need to arrange this, okay, for yourself. You need to make sure that you make all these right choices and whatever. And you apply all these harmony things that you've learned, whatever. In the analysis, practically, it is a study where you go through the music bar by bar, starting from the very beginning. You mark down this, the key signature. You write down all the chords, okay, that belong to that particular key signature. You understand all the scales or the arpeggios. You keep going through the score. You'll see whether there are inverted chords. You will, you will notice progressions. You will notice cadences. You will notice all kind of different minor scales that might be applied. There are all sorts of things that happen, dominance of chords, key changes, so many things that are parts of the score. So you're analyzing music, you are detailing all these sounds, which means you're not just learning, the notes, but you're starting to pay extreme sort of attention to details, because your charts needs to be properly made. You need to be totally in control. If you got a hearing problem, and I'm sure I'm talking to a lot of people here with sort of, profound hearing loss, you need to really be prepared. This is the word. And you need to be ready and make sure that what you do is completely organized, bit by bit. This is the only way that you're going to get through one piece that without having problems. And also that is played properly. You see, just the fact that we have a hearing loss or that we're using cochlear implants and all the rest, that doesn't mean that our performance, performance sort of doesn't have to be musical. Because you guys, you're deaf people, you're going to no. We are performing. We still need to, be able to make music, and we have the opportunity of doing so if we have this sort of basic knowledge, okay, that allows you really, to prepare your music properly. In a nutshell, this is what the study, and I'm looking here, it's really all about. In doing your analysis, you will complete your work. It's just simple as that. Now, obviously, you are sort of, let's say, preparing charts for a single instrument. That will be the same for a piano player. Piano player can do that too. Exactly, the same type of work, okay? Piano players obviously use, two hands. So there's quite a bit of harmonic, constructions that needs to be put into place. But they're very good, like classical, guitarists that normally do a lot of this work, obviously. But for other instruments, to write in your own chart, or obviously, say for a violin or for a viola, It's very simple. You need to organize your music. I can't tell you how to organize a solo for a violinist or for a cello player, whatever. This is something that you know because you play those instruments, you study this instrument. And obviously, if you wish to do something proper, you need to be talking to the right teachers and all the rest. But practically, there are two instruments, that can be polyphonically applied, without backing, and as we know, that is the guitar, and of course the piano, which is the main instrument, right? So all the other instruments, the way you play your chart, the way you arrange your chart, it's the way you play them when you first started your instrument, when you remember when you used to go to have your music lessons, and your teacher used to give you a piece, that's the music. This is what you got to look at. This is what you have to play. And of course, if you find that it is written in a key that is not longer friendly for frequencies reasons or whatever, write it in a different key. If you know how to read, obviously you do, and you're able to sort of, you got all these principles of harmony, whatever, you can transpose your music because transposing your music is not difficult when you understand intervals. So that's why we need to understand intervals, okay? And we need to understand practically, what is the difference between an F note and a G note. You need to know that in an F note there is only one flat, and if you play in a key of G, well, then you're introducing a sharp, the one sharp. Okay, so bottom line, it is important that you have this knowledge. This is not questionable. When I first wrote this program, I knew that the knowledge that I have acquired during those years of study in contemporary harmony and classical harmony was going to be fundamental, because ultimately I was going to play solo. And so without this knowledge, it would have been difficult, if not impossible, to do anything. So this is very basic. I kept it extremely simple. But please, you need to understand the importance. And I'm only talking here to musicians that haven't done any study. If you've done some study, you will be able, to do this by yourself. It is really written in a very simple way. Okay, I'll leave you with this. I thank you, very much, for watching this section. We just talked about the jazz harmony study, which is the third part of this program, or the PMAD program. The PMAD program is a music rehabilitation program for musicians that have lost their hearing. Therefore, PMAD or PMAD stands for Playing Music After Deafness. My name is Massimo Tonson Latour. As you know, I am the solo writer and creator of this program, and I'm one of you guys. I have lost my hearing practically, completely. So here I am, and I'll tell you, I'm having lots of fun. I'm really enjoying playing music. It's a different life. Yes, I'm not on a big stage and all that, but I find that my life is really, rewarding, because to me, being, with my music, it's, really, really, really important. Okay, I'll thank you now, and hopefully we'll see you for the last part of this program presentation, which is called Recording Your Music. This is something that you will obviously put into place once you have rehabilitated, once you have a proper program, in your hands, so many pieces and all the rest. You're very confident and ready to record. I'll sign you off. Thank you so much, for watching, and bye now.